Good morning, Salibonani. Welcome to the Weekly Affair. I'm Sikhangele Ngwenya, your host. Today we have Emthonjeni Women's Forum, who are going to be sharing with us their work that they did during the COVID lockdown. I'm going to read the statistics before we get to the conversation so that we understand the depth at which COVID affected families. According to MSASA hotline, it recorded 6,832 phone calls from March to December 2020, and 94% calls were from women, and it increased from over 40% compared to pre-lockdown. Welcome to the show. May you please introduce yourself and briefly tell us about the work that you've been doing for the past 2 years during lockdown and post-lockdown restrictions.
Thank you very much, Sikhangele Ngwenya. My name is Melissa Ndlovu, and I work with Emthonjeni Women's Forum as the programs manager. From the inception of the lockdown, we have been doing work with victims of gender-based violence as well as survivors. As an organization, we provide what we call preventive and responsive measures to gender-based violence. By preventive, I mean that we do community education, we do advocacy work, we work with traditional leaders and state actors towards addressing or reducing the prevalence of gender-based violence. And as a responsive measure, we do what is called court support services, we do what is called counseling services, and other services such as welfare for women who have encountered violence. So within the lockdown period, we actually saw a rise in GBV cases, especially because we could not go to the victims, or the victims could not come to us in terms of our offices. We resorted to online services. By online services, we utilized WhatsApp for counseling, and we also used our toll-free line for counseling services. And because our victims could not travel to us, or we could not travel to go and assist our victims, it actually created a challenge. You also noticed that the courts kind of narrowed down their services and they closed down some of the services that they offer. It created challenges for some of the survivors of gender-based violence, but in that we're able to give them support through knowledge, which was through radio programs. We were also able to reach out to them through our WhatsApp platforms. We created animations, podcasts that were able to educate the masses on gender-based violence, on the need to balance power within their households, and how they could resolve some of the conflicts they were encountering. But we also encouraged women to seek help, to go to the police and seek services, especially in cases where they encountered GBV or violence.
Okay, that's interesting. You guys were really working during lockdown. So from what you said and also the statistics that I was talking about, do you think there was an increase or a decline during the lockdown? What is your comment based on what MSASA is saying? Was it the same case with you guys?
There was a boom in terms of the use of our toll-free lines. Partly because we were unavailable in terms of our offices because of the lockdown, but also because there were a lot of cases that began to happen within the households. We had a number of gruesome murders that were actually reported, cases of men grinding their women's heads, girls being murdered during the lockdown period. Because of that confinement within the home, people could not leave the home or resolve their conflicts or seek help when they were encountering conflicts. So that confinement in the same space saw an escalation or a shoot in GBV cases. And I should say, we experienced a 300% fold in terms of the increase in the number of calls that we got and women seeking assistance in terms of GBV.
Okay, so would you equate gender-based violence or domestic violence to issues to do with economic crisis?
I think when we unbundle or unpack gender-based violence, it comes in different forms. There is the part where we talk about violence against girls and women, which is culturally or religiously induced. There's a space where we talk about domestic violence, the violence that happens within the home. It could be men to woman, umamazala, umalukazana, and all that stuff. But there's also what we call intimate partner violence. You would notice that when the lockdown happened, a lot of people within the Zimbabwe's economy are within the informal economy. And the regulations during lockdown were such that people could not leave their homes to go and sell their wares in the street. We could not hustle with our wares or market our wares or go to different spaces to sell our wares. And because of that confinement, a lot of women lost their income. A lot of men lost their income and jobs as well. And when you are in the house, agula mpupu, agula cooking oil, and there's no food, conflict because of that emanates. The woman has the pressure of feeding her children. The man has also got the pressure of providing for the woman. And because men were unable to deal with their pressure, they then inflicted their power over women within that space. So economics or issues of financing the home, issues of livelihoods, play center in the escalation of GBV or domestic violence.
Okay, so you did mention that there was a boom during the first lockdown, which is the 2020 March to probably December, January there about. So is there a decline now? And are people really taking counseling as a serious thing in Africa or in Blawa, according to your experience? Do you think women are really interested in counseling, and does it work?
I think the first question was on, do we see a decline in GBV cases? Like I said, there are different types of violence. There's the physical violence, there's economic violence, there's sexual violence, etc. We have seen cases of physical violence somewhat decline. But as they were declining, they were met with the hyperinflationary environment in Zimbabwe. You'll notice that a lot of women now want maintenance. They now want variations of their maintenance. And there are a lot of women who are now coming out to claim for maintenance in terms of the upkeep of their children. So that has been coming out really strong. I'm sad because within the last week, the Zimbabwe Republic Police was talking about a serial rapist who raped more than 16 young people within Bulawayo. And that for me doesn't say that cases of sexual abuse have declined. It actually shows that there is somewhat an increase. Even when you read the papers, there have been various cases or pockets of sexual abuse that have been taking place. And you'll notice that failure to provide in the home causes a lot of people to speak out and say things sometimes that they don't mean and emotionally abuse each other. And a lot of cases of emotional abuse have also been coming up. So it's not just been the lockdown that has an effect. The inflationary environment that we currently live in Zimbabwe has also had an effect. Issues of mental health in Zimbabwe have been, I think that the public has not embraced it with the importance that it should be embraced with. And a lot of people do not consider counseling as a priority, even when you know or you see that they need it, because you'll notice the different decisions that people then make. When people come in and they're going to court, they have this set mindset, and you notice, Uguti, this will not work. So what we do is we provide services, that is counseling, before we assist you with court support services. Because you'll notice that after you've given them counseling, they make better, more informed decisions about their lives. And there's been a lot of cases on murder, on violence, when sometimes people cannot deal with mental stress, with pressure, with depression, which they could sit down and really have conversation about it, probably find healing, probably find more informed decisions, but also be in a mindset that is more settled. So I feel that there is need for an increased uptake and people to start considering counseling as a priority and mental health as very crucial in our well-being.
Okay, that's interesting to note. But Melissa, can you explain to us, gender-based violence has been seen as women being violated by a man. Do you think women are really victims? Are they genuinely victims, or they know how to package their stories?
The first thing that I need us to understand is that gender-based violence is about power, unequal power relations, whether it be economic, it be cultural, it be structural, it be economic. It is about power relation. When I beat you, Ska, whether you've packaged a story or you have not packaged a story, it does not take away that you have been beaten by a man who has more power than you do. If you are a wife and you're staying at home and your husband does not allow you to go and work, when he no longer brings money at home to take care of your needs and your children, would we come and say that, no, she has packaged the story well? I'm a husband and I've told her to stay at home. There's no packaging that is needed. When I exert myself and forcefully copulate a woman without her consent, that is rape. I cannot come and say she has packaged a story well. Even when we're in a relationship, in a marriage, when I force myself on you because I have power to do that, that is violence. And I feel that communities need to start seeing violence for what it is and stop blaming the victim, but starting to understand the story of the victim over the story of the perpetrator. So violence by its nature has to be called out for what it is and not package people as victims, whether you're a man or a woman. When you have been violated and violence has happened to you, it is what it is. It is violence, and it should be called out as such.
Wow, okay, because I've heard reports that women are actually the perpetrators in some instances, but men then fail to speak out because of the social norms and people laughing at men for saying, why is your wife abusing you? So the society is just not ready, according to the reports that I see. And you did mention that women really are victims of gender-based violence. So in your experience, why are they not giving up these marriages?
I'm an Afro-feminist. I believe in women, and I believe women have been abused for a very long time. And women themselves have been failing to speak out because of cultural barriers. But coming to men, I feel men also experience violence. And when they do, they need to come out and speak out. Because when violence happens, regardless of your gender or regardless of your sex, you need to speak out because it is healthy to do so and it is prudent to do so. Our African society teaches us ukuthi okwenzakala emzini wakho should not come out to the world. Do not wash your dirty linen in public. There is need for people to go to where they can get or seek help, because sometimes all you need is help so that you can come out of a toxic relationship. I'm not into the business of encouraging women to leave their homes or their marriages, but when you see that something is not good for your welfare and your well-being, your mental state and your health, it's okay to leave. We need to teach our children not to remain silent in toxic environments. When something happens, seek help. When the help has not happened, it's okay to leave. It's really okay to leave. I say this as a woman. I say this as a pastor. I say this as a gender activist, and I say this as a feminist. At some point, you know this is not working, and I will die in this environment. It is okay to leave.
You're saying quite interesting stuff, because at the beginning we tried to navigate the link between the economic status of a family or the breadwinner and gender-based violence, of which you did say that women are failing to leave marriages because they do not know where to go. So how have you guys been working with these other institutions like MSASA who offer shelter? Have you been able to refer some? And what is the situation now?
What we do in cases where the home is very violent and the woman can no longer stay in the home, the first option is to find family that the person can stay with, because family also helps you go through some of these things and pick yourself up and find your feet. In the case where there's no family members that you can go to, we refer to MSASA. In some rural communities, there's traditional leadership who, according to the Domestic Violence Act, should also provide places of safety for women who have encountered violence, or referrals to go to places of safety. So it actually depends on the situation and how insecure a situation is, or if a person can actually leave their current home, be with their brother, be with their mother, be with the sister. It's actually a safer space that helps a woman pick herself up. I've also encouraged women, Ska, to say that you need to find your economic feet. What makes women fail to find options is that they're economically dependent on this man who abuses her. But when you find your feet and you're doing something, you're able to just move out, go and rent out another house elsewhere, unless if you feel that your security is compromised. But women need to find their economic feet. Do something, sell tomatoes, sell sweets, just do something that gives you a form of income.
Okay, so I've always, as someone who is interested in issues of gender, I always fail to understand, or I always feel there's a gap in terms of our programming, because we are targeting the victims as opposed to the perpetrators. In your line of work, do you offer services for men as well who are going through mental issues, maybe because they were fired at work and stuff like that? How do you handle such issues, or you offer family counseling, because the children are also involved in the whole thing? How do you manage that setup?
We are positively discriminatory. By positively is that when men encounter violence or abuse, we normally refer them to our partner organizations such as Contact and Padare, who are experts in helping men who encounter violence. But as Emthonjeni, we offer what is called rehabilitative counseling. There are men who engage in violent actions because of their frustrations, etc. So when they come with the victim, we offer what is called rehabilitative counseling. We assist the man to see the folly of his actions in the violence that he's engaged in while he was violating the woman. We also offer family counseling services when the family comes together, so that we assist them to make informed decisions, but also to resolve conflicts that they encounter. But on the general, we do refer men to other service providers who are better off in helping men with the challenges they encounter.
Would you give us a success story on some of the work that you did in reuniting or reconciling families?
I think we have a lot of those. But when women come to us and they have encountered violence, we normally ask them to bring in their spouse, if the spouse is willing, and we have discussions. And when we're going through the counseling, we give them what is called tasks. They go home and do the tasks and report back. Some people will come for 6 sessions, some as many as they need. And we've had a number of success stories. Unfortunately, as a counseling organization, I cannot give out details because of the trust that we have with the public. But we've had a number of success stories where families have reunited, families have reconciled, and we've seen good things happen. Yeah.
Obviously, you are interested in governance issues. If you were in government, if you were the president right now, what would you change in terms of seeing families happy and a country without these social injustices that we see every day? What would you?
That's a very strong question, Scott. But that is, I think the first thing, the most important thing, is dealing with the economy. the economic issues that we're going through have had a negative impact and negative implications when it comes to gender-based violence. During the lockdown, the courts were closed, and the government, during a time of disaster, the government had not put gender-based violence as a priority area in terms of access to services, access to GBV services, and the safety of people, which mostly impacted on women. So I would make sure that GBV becomes a priority in times of disaster within the Zimbabwean context. And because I love women empowerment, I would ensure that I operationalize Section 17, Section 56, and Section 80 of the Constitution, which speaks to gender equality in all spheres of life, including government itself, including parliament, including places of work. That would empower women and ensure that women can occupy spaces where they can influence issues that they encounter in their day-to-day lives, but also empower other women to deal with gender-based violence. I'm not saying that empowered women do not encounter gender-based violence, but they're more likely to be more resilient and to address and deal with gender-based violence. So there is that need for government to start operationalizing its constitution and actually seeing that we empower women as a strategy of reducing gender-based violence. So if I was the president, I would do that. I would definitely do that. Yeah.
But I find it to be very interesting that we keep on talking about women empowerment for over years now, but women are still being abused in their homes, in their workplaces, in politics. And is gender equality really is a reality, or is just a story?
I think it comes back to Section 52 of the Constitution that speaks to personal security. And I think that to those in government, there has to be a level of political will towards implementing the Constitution. And I think that as citizens of Zimbabwe, as we go out and vote, there are things that government should promise us, tangible, concrete issues. And women being 51%, 52% of the country's population, we need to start influencing things that are more important to us. Things such as protection. We need to provide for our families. We need gender equality and have women represented in an equal manner, which can be tallied with the votes that they have. So as women, we have the power to influence policy. We have the power to influence change. We have the power to influence gender equality as well. So I encourage women to actually go out there, know why you're voting, know what you're voting for, and have someone promise you something that is more tangible to you so that you're able to support them and not just go out there blindly.
Yeah, I'll take you back to the question that I asked you. Are we directing our concerns to the right places as women? Are we really pushing towards the right direction?
In terms of our concerns, this just reminds me, the year before last, we had a project where we were advocating for the elimination of sexual harassment within the workspace and the amendment of the Labour Act, as well as the ratification of ILO Convention 190, which speaks to safety in the workspace and addressing GBV. And I felt that we were pushing in the right direction as the women's movement. And in as much as the Labour bill has come out, I have not seen a lot, but I've seen something that says we're moving in the right direction. I've seen the women's movement pushing for a mandatory sentence when it comes to rape or sexual abuse. I've seen women pushing for gender equality and pushing for a bill that speaks to gender equality. I've seen women pushing for a bill that speaks to sexual harassment. And I encourage government to open up their ears and start hearing this, because that will bring about development, that will bring about the strengthening of the national framework and policies, and that will bring about the empowerment of women. So we need women who are within government, who are within parliament, who have influence to start speaking out. I also call upon civil society, women within the civic movement, and women within general society to start talking about women empowerment. Let's put it on the agenda and set the agenda so that we are able to see that those who have the power and authority to influence decisions or make decisions actually make them.
Okay, I think one day you should be president. A lot of things are going to change.
Thank you.
So what advice would you give to young women who are going through abuse because they are already victims of gender-based violence, you know, the inequalities in the society probably pushing them to sell their bodies, to stand for the injustices, for survival. So what advice would you give to people going through that right now?
To women who are encountering abuse and violence, be it in your workspace, be it in your home, be it in your family or environment, we need to start speaking out.
Yeah.
Let's break the barriers. Let's break the biases. Let's break the stereotypes. Talk, speak, kuluma. This will help you in terms of your emotional well-being, your mental well-being, and you as an individual. So when you've encountered violence, you can speak to us even on our toll-free line if you cannot come to our office. Our number is 080-10188. If you have a Net 1 number, you can call us for free. Speak out, seek help. There is nothing embarrassing about looking for help. There is everything beautiful about being a survivor. Because when you've encountered violence, you are a victim. When you seek help and deal with it, you become a survivor. You become stronger and you become everything that you were not before you sought help.
Okay, I hope people are listening and they are going to act on the information that you've just given us. So before we close, if you have any reactions, remarks, I've asked you a lot of questions. Maybe there's something that you want to share with us.
I think women have the responsibility of advocating for change, be it in violent relationships, in women empowerment, equal representation. And as men, I believe in men who help women who have encountered violence. And I believe men have a voice to change the narrative as well. I believe men are formidable partners in empowering women. So let's stand together, change the narrative, change the environment. We are able to rise as a developed nation when we work together and work with women.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us today. We learned a lot. See you next time when you are now the president of this country and hopefully changing the laws and everything. Yeah, thank you for watching Weekly Affair. We have come to the end of our show. Today we're talking about gender-based violence and how it affected our citizens, our women, our men during the